Ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I'm going to be going over a very interesting story. It is the story of the dancing Israelis. Now, I'm sure many of you might have a very vague recollection of the phrase dancing Israelis, and I'm guessing a lot of you probably think in your mind that it was some conspiracy theory, or that it was fake, or that it was some type of anti-Semitic stuff. It was 1000% real, so real to the point of the government having to declassify photos of the 5 dancing Israelis because of a Freedom of Information Act request, and I'm going to review everything that transpired related to the story. Now, the main part of the story did happen on September 11th, 2001 in New York City, but there was a lot of lead up and a lot of things that happened after the fact as well. A simple definition of the dancing Israelis were 5 men perched from an advantageous position in clear view of both towers, dancing, posing, and celebrating with a camera as the towers burned in the background. It was so noticeable, a bystander who was looking at the towers with binoculars over the top of the parking lot reported the 5 men to the police, along with their white van, which supposedly was part of their moving company, Urban Movers.
Oh, like he assumed that these
The men left in their white van sometime after both towers were hit at around 3 o'clock in the
That's a little weird.
afternoon on September 11th. An alert went out to the police to look for this white van. A few hours later, they were able to track it down. The van was pulled over, and the men were investigated in New Jersey. The 5 Israelis originally
I was
denied
going to say, how does he could just be making this story up, but okay, I guess if they were arrested, there's got to be like
having involvement in this event, saying their advantageous view was just a coincidence, and that they got there after the first building was hit. However, it was later reported that the white van was seen there at around 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time before the first plane was hit.
That's true.
I should also make a note here that the 5 men claimed they saw the towers burning, and that attracted them to the advantageous position. The U.S. government has confirmed that there are photographs that exist of the 5 men smiling, laughing, and even in one instance, holding up a lighter right under where one of the towers was burning. There were around 80 total photos. The arrested Israelis were caught with money in their socks and tested positive for explosive residue in their van and on their clothing. The company that they worked for, Urban Movers, was later found to be a shell company started by another Israeli. When the FBI went to question him 3 days after September 11th, he fled to Israel. It was said that there was an abnormal amount of computers located inside the moving company's offices. They were all seized by the FBI. The 5 men were held for 70 days and then deported back to Israel, where they later admitted on Israeli TV that they were in New York City as Mossad agents there to document the event.
No.
The Mossad is the National Intelligence Agency of
Wait, hold on. I was talking during that. This is the guys, and they said they were Mossad agents there to document it? How would they know it was going to happen?
Document the event. The FBI. The 5 men were held for 70 days and then deported back to Israel, where they later admitted on Israeli TV that they were in New York City as Mossad agents there to document the event. The Mossad is the National Intelligence Agency
How would Mossad
of
know
Israel.
that? How would Mossad know that the towers were going to fall for them to even be there to document it to begin with?
So how is that really...
And also, why are so many Mossad agents like Epstein and stuff
possible? What those men were insinuating was that at least a fraction of their government would have had some prior knowledge of September 11th, which would have allowed them to get in position and in an area with a view of the towers, which then enabled them to celebrate as the towers were burning. And remember, they originally lied. It wasn't until they were deported off U.S. soil that they told the truth on Israeli TV. The moving company was set up for a specific reason. We know this because it immediately dissolved after September 11th when the FBI started questioning the Israeli owner. Many people have tried to make sense of this and explain it away. A common belief is that the men were happy and joyous to see September 11th because it likely meant U.S. involvement in the Middle East, potentially hurting Israel's enemies. I guess that is an explanation for the happiness, which in and of itself is extremely dark, but it's not realistic, considering everyone thought after the first plane hit the North Tower that it was a pilot error or some sort of accident. These men knew. And it doesn't really explain the situation. Here you have 5 men who have admitted to at least doing some type of recon mission in New York City under a shell company that was run by another Israeli that got immediately dissolved after September 11th. They would have likely known the day and the time frame when the event was going to happen. They would have by another Israeli.
That's only 14. This is only 3 days after. They were investing these guys 3 days after.
Israeli that got immediately dissolved after September 11th. They would have likely known the day and the time frame when the event was going to happen, and then got deported from the United States, went back to Israel, and then admitted they worked for.
Damn, imagine you send some spies to do a job and they're like posing and dancing.
Israeli intelligence trying to explain why they were in the position, ready and waiting for the towers to be hit. It also is worth noting that there was an Israeli art student ring active in Florida monitoring the hijackers. Florida is where the hijackers took their flight school. If you are unfamiliar, the Israeli art student ring refers to a controversial phenomenon from the early 2000s involving individuals often described as Israeli art students who visited U.S. government facilities, military bases.
Is it like anti-Semitic propaganda and the fact that it's not real at all, or that just the framing of it? Because, I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing this, but if this is true, that these guys went on TV and said they're Mossad agents and that they were there to document the attack, which part of that is anti-Semitic propaganda?
And the homes of federal employees. They claimed to be selling or promoting art, but were suspected by some to be engaging in surveillance or espionage activities. A French intelligence agency later reported that, according to the FBI, Arab terrorists and suspected terror cells lived in Phoenix, Arizona, as well as Miami and Hollywood, Florida, between December 2000 and April 2001, right near Israeli spy cells. The report suggested that Mossad agents were monitoring Mohammed Atta and other hijackers leading up to the attacks. It's commonly known that Israeli spy cells were located all over the United States leading up to September 11th. In August of 2001, 1 month before September 11th, the Mossad reportedly alerted the FBI.
So what is this saying? That Israel had something involved to do with this? What would be the benefit of Israel to frame this? Anyone have any ideas of that?
FBI and the CIA that up to 200 terrorists were entering the United States and planning a, quote, major attack on the United States. That is important information, but it doesn't explain the 5 men, the fake moving company, and the knowledge of the event happening at the specific time, at the specific place, targeting the specific building. They were cheering for a reason. That reason was likely this. Since September 11th, 2001, the United States has spent $8 trillion on wars and related activities in the Middle East and other surrounding regions. A 2004 memo disclosed the deportation.
Someone said, check out Larry Silverstein, owner of the towers. He ate breakfast there every day except for on 9/11. When he went for a last-minute dermatology appointment. Damn, guy, good luck.